Welcome everybody to the Barons Club podcast. We are back with another episode. My special guest for today is Snebzor. You know who he is. The man with the bandana, the man with the Guild Wars 2 merchandise. He was telling me all about it like just before we went live. Sneb, good to have you. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me on. I'm actually really excited about this. This will be like the first podcast I've done, so pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Is this really your first podcast?
Well, I mean, I've done other things in the past, like just with like friends or something on the side, but nothing about Guild Wars 2. So I have a lot to say, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, we were kind of having to like stop ourselves briefly, right? Because we were like, this is some good stuff for the podcast, save it for the podcast kind of thing.
Yeah, we're just going down this like insane memory lane with Guild Wars 1, and then, yeah, it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good, yeah. So, hello everybody, welcome by the way. To get into all of this, so something I do with my guests all the time, something that I do with all the podcasts. We'll talk about briefly what got you into this game, whether that's Guild Wars 2 or previously Guild Wars 1, and then go through how you wanted to become a streamer, what made you want to become a streamer, and then of course our topic for today, which everybody here knows. Our topic for today will be about the Guild Wars 2 community, which there's a lot to talk about in this community, so we'll get into all those details soon. But to begin, so you were telling me this, and then of course for the stream, you started playing very early on with Guild Wars 2 and then even Guild Wars 1. So how did you start Guild Wars 1? How'd you find it? Talk me through that.
Yeah, I think if I go really back into like the caverns of memory in my brain, my friend and I were like 11, and he had an older brother that was really into PC games. We were playing like Diablo 2, Heroes of Might and Magic 3, you name it. We had all these different games, and his brother really introduced us to a lot of those things. So I remember one day I went to his house, and he was like, "Hey, I got this new game," and we'd been playing RuneScape a lot. So he's like, "I got this new game. It's like the same kind of game as RuneScape, except it's got like better graphics and it's a little bit different." And so I remember playing it and just being like, wow, like this is so cool. This is totally different than RuneScape. And he was like, yeah, and you just buy it once and it's free to play. So it's not like World of Warcraft. And so I remember I went to his house a few times, and then eventually I was like, man, I got to buy this game. So I begged my parents, and my dad took me to GameStop or whatever, and we bought Guild Wars Prophecies, Guild Wars 1. And that's how it all started. It was like 11.
You mentioned that you played RuneScape just before playing very much Guild Wars 1, and it's actually funny because I started like that as well. Like that was the same kind of way I started playing the game. I was playing RuneScape with friends, and Guild Wars 1 had come out, and one of them was like telling me, hey, there's this Guild Wars game that you got to check out and everything. They're in beta, but you can still buy it and maybe get in on like the last beta test before the game comes out. And I was just like, sure. And I remember like, trying to tell my mom, like, I really want this game. Can you please, pay for it? And being 10 or 11 at the time, my mom was like, if I buy it, I better see you be playing this and not like tossing it aside. And then she's like, it's either this game or you cancel your RuneScape membership. And I was like, okay.
Oh man, that's
as a kid, you understand how tough that is, right? Like,
yeah, that's quite the ultimatum.
Yeah. So same kind of way. What made you fall in love with Guild Wars 1 in when you started playing it, when you started getting into it?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I don't even really know. I think it was just the environment, right? And I actually back then really liked the story. So, I was in pre-searing Ascalon, and then, it's like the tutorial, and then suddenly a dark day falls on the city of Ascalon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's the searing, and then everything's destroyed. I got like really immersed in that. And it felt like there was so much replayability because there were so many skills, and it was really tactical, right? In RuneScape, I just like, chop, chop, chop. But in Guild Wars 2 or Guild Wars 1, I had to think about what skills were on my bar, and I had to adjust them based on, what map I was in and what enemies I was facing. And so all of that just kept me kind of glued into the game. And then when they started doing things like the holiday events, I would play the crap out of the game on like Christmas break from school. Even if I hadn't played for like 4 months, I somehow always found myself going back to the game around Christmas because I just thought the Christmas event was so much fun.
Oh yes. I think like the one of the most at the time, one of my favorite things from Winter's Day in Guild Wars 1 was the snowball fights. I don't know why. Compared to Guild Wars 2, it's not the same, but Guild Wars 1 was always fun. You know, be on Team Grant.
Oh yeah, because didn't each profession had like unique skills and like they really mattered in the snowball fights, and so you're like always trying to kind of balance it out. And then I don't know, it was more tactical, right? I know it was like stop, press skill, fire skill, move. Like it's not dynamic like Guild Wars 2 is, but it was very tactical. Whereas Guild Wars 2, it feels like it could be tactical with things like, you know, the Dragon Ball Arena or Snowball Fight, like those sorts of things that could be more tactical. But people are fairly casual with how they approach those things already. And then with, you know, the skill level of the average players is super high. And so it makes it just kind of a cluster. People just like go in and just ram themselves into each other and hope that it works out.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. So you had mentioned that like as well, like that when you start playing, like you mentioned, like you just kind of took breaks and stuff like that. Was there ever a time in Guild Wars 1 that you felt like there was something that is like, okay, this was probably the best thing that this game offers that I didn't see at the time in any other MMO, or kind of like whether it was the story, whether it was a different game mode within Guild Wars 2? Was there something that was like, this is really cool? Like I don't see anything other than Guild Wars doing this.
Guild Wars 1 or Guild Wars 2?
For Guild Wars 1.
Guild Wars 1. There were a few events that I thought were just very, very unique. I think, I mean, I know we're going to talk a lot about community, but there was this interaction that a lot of the devs and stuff had with the community, whether it was on the forums or on Guild Wars Guru, if you remember that website, and even in the game, that really started to attract me and sort of keep me a part of Guild Wars always. So first of all, Pink Day in LA that was done by Gamers Giving Back, raising money for the Canadian Cancer Society. That's been going on for years, and it still exists today, right? That was an event where not only the players came together, but a lot of, you know, the devs and stuff would go and become like a big part of it. I feel, and I don't know this for sure, but I feel like there's, you know, that sort of family thing has kind of been distanced a little bit, but I don't know what it was exactly about that, but it just made me feel like I was a part of something big. And then in line with that, I remember one Winter's Day, they released the polar bear. Do you remember that? The mini polar bear.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a secret, right? There was no patch notes.
There was nothing about it.
They didn't announce it. They just put it in the game, and some guy got the drop, and it was like a 1 in a million, right? He got the drop, and he's like, guys, what is this? And everybody thought it was fake. He was on the forum. People were calling him out. He's like, no, I'm in Commandant District 1. Come here now. You can see it. And everyone in the game like flocked to see this guy's polar bear. And they were so confused. And originally, Gail Gray, community manager at the time, like denied that it was real. And then suddenly she had to be like, oh, the devs, you know, they put this in as a surprise. This is how you get it. And then everyone farmed that little mini game thing like crazy. And I just thought like things like that were so cool. I mean, somebody in the chat mentioned this too, but like the dual class mechanic always kept things fresh in Guild Wars 1. And to me, that made things really exciting and interesting as well. But for me, it was just like these little things that they did that kept me interested in the community that then sort of bound me to the game.
Fair enough. Yeah, mentioning the dual class mechanic, actually definitely something interesting that kept Guild Wars 1 balance kind of, you know, exciting because there's always something new. Sometimes though, like that was probably like what also kind of killed the balance in Guild Wars 1, because eventually they just had too much to deal with. Something breaks all the time. But at the time, I think the dual class mechanic was very revolutionary for a game like that. Yeah. Um, that's actually nice. Like that you remember again. Like this is also within our topic of the Guild Wars 2 community. That Guild Wars 1, a lot of people forget that Guild Wars 1's community was also just as good, and I think maybe even in some cases it was even much better. And yeah, to head into Guild Wars 2. So, what made you play Guild Wars 2? Like, did you kind of like take a break from Guild Wars 1, did other things, then found out Guild Wars 2 was coming out, and then decided to play? Or were you someone who was in that phase of transitioning between both MMOs, Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2?
So back in the day, I was making like video game commentaries and stuff on YouTube. So when I was like 16, I was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I was like making little commentaries and stuff. And I had like a small following on YouTube. And I started to get bored of Call of Duty and went back and started playing Guild Wars 1 and making Guild Wars 1 videos. So when they announced Guild Wars 2, it was like such a big deal to me. I was so excited, so hyped. And I remember that I just wanted to make videos about it because I was really passionate about it. So I was making like little videos as a 16, 17-year-old would, and just talking about the game and what I was excited about. And so I suppose it was just sort of a natural transition for me. I was like, this is the next big thing. I'm going to go do it. This game is going to revolutionize MMOs. Look what they're doing. Look at all these things they've said they're going to do. This is crazy. I was like captain of the hype train at that point. I remember when Guild Wars 2, I played a bunch of the Guild Wars 2 betas. I had friends that were in like alpha. And then I remember I went to PAX. I think it was PAX East in 2012. And I think it was the first time Guild Wars 2 had been played live. And I was in that audience. And I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. I got like beta keys from that too. And then when Guild Wars 2 came out, I stayed up all night with like 3 of my friends, ate a ton of Doritos, and and chugged the Mountain Dew, and we just gamed hard. And I thought it was just so much fun. Yeah, that's how I kind of got into it. It just happened naturally. It was the sequel.
Yeah. For me, it was kind of like I was still playing Guild Wars 1, and I was actually playing World of Warcraft at the time as well. Like, so I was playing those two games together. And I remember like around 2009, 10, I had started to kind of get bored of World of Warcraft, and that was like a little after Wrath of the Lich King, right? Still to this day, I think one of their best expansions. And I was like playing Guild Wars 1, but I'm just like, I'm playing a game that like, there's Guild Wars at that point they've already announced, or the 2009 or 10, there was already like somewhat like teaser announcements of Guild Wars 2 and like a few clips here and there. So I remember I was in like that phase where like I don't have anything else to play besides Guild Wars 1 to get me to Guild Wars 2. So I was kind of like in that crowd who kind of like just kept playing until Guild Wars 2 came out. And like you said, the excitement of watching Guild Wars 2, and I don't know if people realize this, but the hype around Guild Wars 2 when it was coming out and when there was like beta tests being announced, like, was unreal. It was just, I don't know how it was for you, but for me, when I played the game, I was just like, oh wow, this is something amazing. Like you're getting to play literally maybe 30 minutes for like a stress test, and you're just like, this is the best thing ever. And you spent like, before you know it, like 30 minutes on the character selection screen, and they're like, oh, by the way, the stress test is over in 10 minutes, and I'm just like, I didn't even get to play yet, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I don't think people, if they weren't around then or weren't really in the community or weren't anticipating Guild Wars 2, I don't think people can fully understand exactly how high the hype train was. It was insane, like the most hyped MMO of all time, I think. I mean, there are MMOs coming out in the next couple of years where I would argue they're now going to compete with that, like maybe Ashes or New World or whatever. Probably more Ashes, I think, is pretty hyped. But Guild Wars 2, just they made a lot of promises, right? They they touted a lot of stuff. They were going to kill the Holy Trinity, and they were going to make dynamic combat, and they were going to, and all of these things. I remember there was a time when they said they were going to make a companion app, and you were going to be able to like manage the trading post from your smartphone, and you were going to be able to like talk to your friends in game from your phone. And they said they were going to do all these things, and some of that didn't come to fruition, but a lot of it did. And the stuff that did really attracted people to the game.
I agree.
I don't know. Like I remember logging in for the first time and seeing the char starting area and just being like, holy, this game has crazy graphics. Doesn't run on my computer very well, but this game has crazy graphics and is a lot of fun. And I want to see where it goes. And I think a lot of people felt like that, and it just kept chugging, right? You had a ton of very big name people in the YouTube community and stuff too that were giving Guild Wars 2 a shot, that had almost never played Guild Wars 1 or had a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah.
So the hype train was insane.
Yeah, you had to be there for it. I definitely agree. And like, yeah, it was one of those, I mean, I would say, yeah, like you said, Ashes of Creation, maybe New World, those two MMOs come to mind when, like, in terms of like what has, you know, kind of like been bigger hype than Guild Wars 2, which is pretty cool if you think about it, that like in 10 years, you know, you had things like Blade and Soul, you had things like Black Desert, you had Arc Age, you had so many MMOs come out, Elder Scrolls Online, so many MMOs came out, and I still feel like Guild Wars 2 was the most hyped and the most promoted MMO you'd ever seen. Of course, we'll talk about the marketing promotion of the game a little later, but like at the time, it really seemed like no other MMO really had that hype train as Guild Wars 2 did until recently now. So I guess that's an accomplishment to how much people wanted that game to succeed. So
yeah, and what I think is interesting about that is you could argue that that's a testament to the marketing they did at the time. And what's crazy is that Guild Wars gets, or Arenanet specifically, gets absolutely roasted for their marketing now, but they used to do it pretty well. Like the fact that they could continue that hype train, and they were talking to magazines, and they were going through all the right channels at the time. But it's interesting because I think what the criticism really is now is that they haven't adapted.
yeah,
They've sort of just stayed complacent. But yeah, it was good. It was really good back in the day.
definitely. So with that being said, getting into Guild Wars 2, and you know, you've played it now, of course, throughout the years. What made you make the decision to want to make content for this game, either as YouTuber or a streamer? What was that like tipping point for you, where it's like, I want to kind of like, you know, showcase what I like about this game to the community, and then also as you as a streamer, what got you as a streamer in general, regardless if it's Guild Wars 2 or not?
Yeah, I think that answer is a little bit multifaceted, but for me, I had made stuff in the past, and I had always been like, oh, I want to get back into it because it brought me a lot of joy. I just thought it was really fun, and it was cool being a part of that community. And I had been watching people for years, right? I had been watching other Twitch streamers and things, but hadn't really been active in talking in chats or anything. I was just like a little bit of a lurker, you know? And I had done that stuff in the past, and I thought, oh man, I want to come back. And so I had graduated school. I was almost done with all my classes and my master's, and I'm in my master's program now, just doing my thesis. But then the pandemic hit, and I'm a pretty social person, and so I was kind of struggling a little bit. I had a really hard time because I was going to have a baby. My wife and I were going to have a baby in a couple months. And I was feeling a little bit lonely because, you know, we're so isolated at home. And I was playing the game and stuff, but I didn't feel very connected to the people I was playing with because people don't really talk in the game very much anymore. And so I ended up thinking, well, you know what? I want to do something to sort of build community and have some fun because things were feeling kind of down. So I started leading metas.
Just to cut you off,
I started
just SMG, thanks so much for the big raid. We got raided, I guess, in the middle of the podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, Phoenix, nice.
That's nice.
What was I saying?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I wanted to bring a little joy to myself and to others because there was a pandemic. I was kind of lonely. It's kind of sad and whatever. So I started leading metas. I started leading Drakkar, right? I started leading Drakkar because I was like, nobody's doing this, and it's so slow, it's painful. Is what I was thinking. I was like, this sucks. Like everybody's leading this meta, but they're not putting any effort into it. They're all just pressing one aggressively, and it makes the meta super slow. So I opted to start leading that meta and trying to make it faster. And then I created like memes around it, and we would do like funny things beforehand. And really, we developed this whole community around killing Drakkar. We started like our own little cult. And so somebody one day was like, hey, are you streaming this? And I was like, no. Like, well, you should. This is like super funny. It's super fun. Because I would be like telling stories, just typing in the chat and map chat. Like, you should just stream this. And so I did. And I remember I had like 5 viewers the first time I streamed my Drakkar run. I was really excited about that. And then within a week, I had Twitch affiliate. And then once that happened, I was kind of like, man, I remember why I like doing this so much. This is so cool. And it just kind of ramped up from there. And I still question why everyone stuck around for this long, but it's almost been a year since I started doing that. And it's pretty darn cool, yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So that was like even very recent, right? Like Drakkar, something in like end of 2019. So yeah, just a little over a year, which is actually nice because like in a little over a year, like I've noticed that you've started, getting up there as a streamer in Guild Wars 2, and now you're actually a pretty known, I would say at least you're very well known in the community of like the streamers, right? Like between Twitch and YouTube. I don't know if you do YouTube. Do you do YouTube?
I'm working on that actually.
You're
I was
working
doing
on
some stuff
that.
for that yesterday and today.
Which you know the benefits of obviously the whole YouTube. There's thousands of videos about like why you need to do a YouTube, which I probably listen to as well. But it's really nice to see that like in a year you managed to like turn that small moment of like this is really fun and it's made other people happy, and like now you've made a community out of this that follows you and like is always excited when you have something for them on stream.
Yeah, and I mean, I said that it was very multifaceted why I started streaming. The other part is when that person suggested that, I started to think, I mean, I'm trained in like my research and my thesis and everything is on public relations and influencers. And so I do all this reading about those things, about marketing, right? I've worked in marketing, I do marketing consulting, I've done some social media stuff. And I'm doing all this stuff, and then I just thought, why don't I actually apply all of my knowledge to something I really am passionate about and care about, which is the Guild Wars 2 community, and see if we can make it work. And so I used all of that training and what I know about building communities and keeping people engaged and put it into the stream. And I'm grateful that people, enjoy it and want to stick around. So yeah.
Yeah, in any time of your 1 year plus of streaming, was there something that you found difficult as a streamer? Was there a few challenges you think that like, oh wow, this was something I wasn't expecting while doing this type of thing? Any challenges in mind?
Yeah, actually, there's probably 3 or 4 times where I received like a little hate, and I guess I'm a bit like I really deeply care about people, and I'm a huge people pleaser, and so when I would get criticism like that, it stung a little bit, and I've had to learn how to be a little bit more thick-skinned and just not care about it. But there was a few times, I mean, I had somebody bamboozle me really early, like within the first 3 or 4 months of me streaming. Somebody bamboozled me, told me that they were going to give me a chalk infusion to give away if I broke the Drakkar world record, and then they ghosted me and made me look stupid.
Oh wow.
And then and it was legit, I swear it was legit before, but they went back on their word. And then I had somebody accused me of being homophobic and a bunch of other stuff, and that really bothered me because they don't know me. And then I had they're just like little things like that I found very difficult being scrutinized publicly, right? Whether it was on Reddit or whatever.
Or even
And I
on
had
live
to really
stream itself
evaluate how I
sometimes.
felt about that stuff.
Yeah.
So
So someone's asking in a respectful way, who is this guy? Well, it's funny because this podcast is about them.
yeah.
But if you were to, hey, this is actually a good way for you to practice your 30-second elevator pitch. In 30 seconds,
Good.
TLDR, sum up, who are you?
Well, I go by Sneb on the internet. I am a graduate student in marketing, and my passion is really Guild Wars. I've been a part of this community for like 15 years or something, and I make Guild Wars 2 content. I do the streams. I have a good time. We do a little bit of everything. I've done raid training quite a bit lately. Every Monday and Wednesday, the Skane gang, which is our community, is raid training. Otherwise, we run metas, we play World vs. World, we do PvP, we do a little bit of everything. We just ultimately have a good time.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah.
That was very well done, to be honest. Very nice. He's a good creator, to be honest. Yes, I thought it was, for some reason I was like, he's a content creator. I don't know. Can't read. So yeah, I feel like there's some things I feel like people don't understand. Like when you are a streamer, you are kind of putting yourself out there. And it's very easy for you to do one simple thing that you might think is like, this shouldn't be a big deal, but then someone apparently takes offense to something. And I think to go on your, you've encountered some challenges, like for example, people apparently promising things and then they just leave you hanging, or something, like, someone accusing you of being homophobic, and it's like, like they don't know you well enough to even make an opinion like that. Something that go ahead.
Do you mind if I interject there? I think for me, I mean, again, my research is influencers and PR, and specifically about how influencers apologize. And so I'm looking at all this research around that, but then I experience, people trying to, how do I explain this? People feel like they have an impression of who you are after like a minute of listening to you. And so every second matters a lot about what you say, how you're saying it, how you're, representing yourself. And I suppose I never even realized how impactful that was until I said one thing in 1 minute about, there's another time where I was talking about giveaways in the Guild Wars 2 community. And if any of you are my viewers, where I stand on giveaways and how they're utilized, etc. And I talked about that, and there was somebody who was like super, super angry. And then they made all of these like sort of assumptions about who I am, right? And I think that is the thing that is so interesting as an influencer, as a content creator in general, is at any point in time, somebody can watch 1 minute of what you do and make assumptions about your entire personality or your character.
Yeah, it feels bad. I think it's also like people don't give time, and I think this is also like where it's hard to capture. Like, you really have only those seconds to capture someone's attention on the stream, right? Like when someone first checks out your stream, it's either in that couple seconds they're gonna be like, I'm gonna hang out a bit more, see what this is about, or if they're instantly bored, they'll like just exit the stream. And that's the thing, like no one really gives, I don't want to say like they have short attention spans, it just feels like no one gives enough before making an opinion. Like even if you watch the stream for 5 minutes, sometimes that's not even honestly a ideal way of saying like who this person is. I mean, even if you watch the stream a couple times a day, unless you sit with the streamer, like you said, like on a long-term basis, is someone that you follow up with regularly, then you can kind of know who they are. But if you just watch them 3 or 4 times, really, and in those 3 and 4 times, have you seen them more than like an hour or 2 hours? It's not enough. To me, something that like kind of, when I started streaming, I didn't stream with like a camera on. I streamed like without my face. It was just, people would just watch me play. And what I got people interested in on my stream is like, at the time it was like, what does the richest player in the game do, kind of thing, right? So I was just like showing them banks and like this is what I keep, and that's what kind of got people on my stream. And of course I made the most out of it. I knew people were there for giveaways, so I gave them what they wanted. And then when I got my computer, because I had built a setup and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this the right way. I get a computer, and that was the tipping point where it was like, if I show myself on camera, I'm going to expose, you know, like people are gonna know who I am. Like they're gonna see me, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that type of thing, you know, because like you said, like you will go through hardships, people will make assumptions, opinions, and you're just gonna have to like eat through that, like, and yeah, I still deal with it on some way. I don't think a lot of people really say much to me anymore, but when I first started out, people say that like I'm a very egotistical person, so I was just like, you know what, like that's, if I come across that way, like, you know what, it's fine, whatever, like I can't change someone's opinion. So I feel like you can't really argue with people, especially because the more you argue, the more I guess the more you kind of like put out more weakness, because then you're like falling into their trap of like, oh, I really care about your opinion. Where if you just shrug off like, hey, okay, you think that about me, okay, I'm not going to do anything to change that opinion, I'm going to be who I am. If you want to really think about that as who I am as a person, then good luck, you know what, you know, you do you, kind of thing. And you're studying this type of behavior, right? Because this is really in your field of study. So what would you say, like, is ways to deal with such things?
Well, there's lots of ways. If you've actually done something wrong, which is really where I focus my research, one of the most effective ways to mitigate that damage to yourself and maybe your income, or if you're like a major influencer or something, is to apologize, right? To address it. But there are many different ways in which you can do that, or ways that you should. And so I would say if it's pretty unwarranted, if people are just upset about something petty, you just ignore it. Really, that's the best way. But if you've actually done something wrong, you need to address it and apologize, accept how it has affected people, and explain, and then do some kind of strategy to show you're gonna make up for it, right? So whether, let's say you had like made fun of somebody for reasons that were highly inappropriate, you could say, hey, I'm gonna help out this charity or whatever that helps people in this situation. Or there's lots of different strategies. It's highly contextual. It depends on how bad was the thing that you did, how many people did it affect, and who did it affect. Was it just you? Was it others? There's just so many factors.
Yeah.
That's why what I research is so interesting, because it's so highly varied and difficult to predict.
Which I mean, again, people have to deal with it in their own way. But Vij actually brings a good point here. Like you're being watched, whether you like it or not. Like if you're putting yourself out there, you are, quote unquote, a social media influencer. I hate to use that word because like people react so negatively to influencers these days, and I'm not even saying that I'm an influencer, but I get what you mean, Vij, by like you are already automatically in that category when you start doing this type of things. So yeah, you have to carry.
If you have any number of viewers on Twitch, like any significant, like even if it's over 10, right? In a sense, you're influencing those 10 people because they're listening to what you say. If every single content creator in the Guild Wars 2 community says that Guild Wars 2 sucks, then people are going to think that Guild Wars 2 sucks. But if they're all really hype about it, people may think that it's really hype, right? Like you actually have a bigger impact than you think. In a lot of ways, everybody is an influencer in that they have a circle of influence. So
yeah, which this is a good segue to the topic of today of the Guild Wars 2 community. And I know you have a lot that you want to talk about for this. And really we can begin anywhere. Is there some particular aspect of the Guild Wars 2 community you want to start off this discussion and then kind of see where we go with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. We could start by just talking about, the Twitch and YouTube community, just the social media communities, I guess, that are within Guild Wars 2, or we could just talk about the Guild Wars 2 community in general. I don't know. Ball's in your court. Where do you want to go with it?
So you know what? We mentioned just before we went live on stream on how different Guild Wars 2, like the Guild Wars 2 community is honestly, even with all that stuff, it's more or less like one of the best communities, I guess, in all most MMOs. Like, people love the Guild Wars 2 community. But like me and you mentioned, it feels to be like a disconnect between the people who are on Twitch and YouTube versus the people who are on Reddit. So, do you want to talk about that first? Like, because that honestly feels like a particular part of the community that I don't know if it's been discussed before. So just comparing our two communities between Twitch, YouTube, and versus Reddit, it comes across as very different, right? Like, something we've said here is like Twitch and YouTube, they support each other. Content creators, like, kind of even, the ones who don't know each other within the street, like, and Guild Wars 2 is a very small streaming community, but it's funny, even the ones that we don't know about, they still find ways to support each other. It's like, oh, hey, that's a person that's doing this event. Like, it seems like they're right now doing a giveaway on their stream, or they're celebrating some milestone on their stream. Hey, let's go rate them, right? Or, and then you check them out and you're like, oh, hey, cool, keep up what you're doing, kind of thing. And you on Reddit, you don't kind of get that. You just get a lot of people who just like to give opinions and want their opinions to be true. And not to say that that's wrong. People should always have their own opinion, but it always comes across as people fighting each other rather than like, hey, we're having a constructive argument.
Yeah. Oh man, I have so much to say about this. It's like almost impossible to keep track in my head of what to start with first. Okay. Well, let's just talk about the Guild Wars community. Let me give like some context. There are quite a few people that played Guild Wars 1 as, a teenager or whatever, and segued into Guild Wars 2 because they like the story, the environment. They're sort of attached to the lore, whatever. They liked the dungeons and speed clearing or whatever in Guild Wars 1 maybe, and now they're here. And those people, when they were a teenager, they played Guild Wars 1 a lot, and maybe into their early adulthood. But now many of those people are in their late 20s or their early 30s or mid 30s or even older, right? And so the responsibility level has changed, and the way in which they engage with content has changed. Our demographic for MMOs in general has changed. And you see that with a lot of MMOs now, they really try to attract those casual players. And so there's a disconnect now in a lot of MMO communities because there are people that are like, this is my life. I love this MMO. I only play the most hardcore of content. I speed clear everything and so on. Then you have all these people that were like, this was my childhood game, and I really like this. I don't take it very seriously anymore. And I feel like on social media, those sort of factions quarrel a lot. They fight because they don't know how to coexist well. And Guild Wars 2 in particular seems to have the greatest skill disparity I've ever seen of any MMO, because there's just all these people who are like, oh, well, I'm just gonna press 1 real hard, and apparently that does enough damage to get through anything that I wanted to get through anyway. And then there's all these hardcore people that are like, put rotations and stats and things. And and so you have these people on social media that are like, you need to play X way, and those people are just like, but that's not who I am anymore. And I actually think that's the greatest division in the Guild Wars community now, is that. And so you see a lot of problems stemming from that. What do you think?
It's interesting because, like, in some ways I can understand where some people, like, it's hard to argue with someone, especially who also comes, like, when you have two very dominating personalities that just don't want to see the other side. It's really hard to call it a debate, which is something that Vich said. A debate is where you also you understand where the other person's coming across from, right? Like you kind of like know where they're coming from. You're not like trying to prove you're trying to prove your argument is the correct one, but then you also understand the, you know, the truth about their argument. And I think a lot of people confuse that. Like they go like, I'm debating you, but like they think that they're debating where it's actually they're just trying to prove their point, regardless if their point has flaws. And you know, anything that you know try to argue about has flaws, whether it's the builds in this game that you want to argue about, like this is the most optimal build or whatever. But then there's the few topics where, like, for example, say you're in a raid and you're in a boss, right? Like, and you're like, okay, so for this boss, let's say Soul Beast, for example, is not applicable for this boss. Like you can play X amount of things that are much better for us to help kill this boss, right? And people take that as like you're telling me what to play, and it's like, I mean, okay, do you want to kill the boss or not? Like, okay, you can play Soul Beast, and then when they play and then say they fall down, I'm just saying Soul Beast, like just something that came up on my mind. I'm not trying to say Soul Beast is bad, just an example. And if that like class is basically bringing down the entire raid, you have to understand, well, you know, you might have to make the change just briefly for that boss. And people take that as like, you're being toxic. You're asking me to play something I don't want to play. And it's like, you know, that's what you're playing is not going to work for this boss. It's simple. And you can kill the boss. It's just going to be a chore, right? So I feel like when people take that stuff, like they take it to heart. It's like, you're telling me what to play, versus when it's like, no, there's things that make raids easier. But if you want to play what you want to play, that's fine. But understand the reason why we're going to die is because maybe we're not hitting that, like, you know, rotation where like everything is clicking together, right? And of course, that's not to one person. That could be to 2-3 people in the group who just refuse to switch to something better. And I don't know, like it sometimes I can understand why people really like that comes across as like, you know, you're toxic, you're asking me what to play, elitist. But you know, if you're playing something like that and say you want to kill it in the best time or it make your life easier, you know, it's more of a suggestion really. But you know, don't be surprised when people tell you, oh yeah, don't be surprised when people tell you like, we couldn't get it done because of these reasons, like your class held us in this case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh man, I have a lot to say about this too. I guess what I'm hearing from you is that this is a two-way street. And I've talked a lot about this on my stream as well. There's a two-way street here. You've got people that know what they're doing. And they if they go into something like a raid, they'll want to help you, and they'll say, yo, like this, you're playing this thing, you're doing no damage, it's just not working out. Can you pick it up a bit, or can you do better, or whatever? They try to help them, or they say, hey, you're not doing the mechanic, or you're failing this. And then on the other side, that person is immediately offended because they feel like it's like insulting the very core of who they are somehow. Like they get really defensive. They go, oh no, like I did this and blah 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 blah. And then you fail the boss again and again and again. And sometimes the person that's less experienced starts pointing fingers, and then the experienced player starts getting extremely frustrated because they're like, I tried to help you and you're not taking it. I'm gonna kick you from the group. And then they kick them from the group, and then the non-experienced player calls the elitist player toxic, and it just creates this like never-ending cycle of these two worlds fighting. And that also exists on the social media, right? People can't handle criticism, and people also overly criticize. One issue that I see on Reddit in particular is that they just criticize and criticize and criticize and criticize and criticize, and they never do the Oreo cookie method. Have you ever heard of that? Say nice thing, criticism, nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
right? Because if you don't add that like, a little bit, it's...
I know it as the good news, bad news, and then good news. Like when you write an email that's like supposed to...
Yeah.
If you want to like put up a complaint or a letter to a manager, always start with good news and the bad news and end with good. But But I mean, so
It's
some
the same. It's the same thing when people are criticizing either somebody's content or they're criticizing, how they're doing in a raid. Or I'm not saying we need to all, duct tape pillows to ourselves and be afraid that the world is, a bad place. We don't need to constantly pamper people and put them in situations where we're just always being so sensitive that it's silly. But in a lot of respects, if you're bringing somebody into and they're doing poorly, you don't go, you suck at the game, kick, right? Like they're never going to want to play again. um but alternatively, you also don't want people to never accept criticism, because I've had this happen like 6 times this week where I say, hey, you're not doing the mechanic, and they say, so what? And I'm like, okay, you're gone.
yeah. Well, so the chat like brings up a couple people in the chat like bring up some good points. So like one of the points, if you do dictate meta all the time, then it feels like that's the only solution. And someone else mentioned that like, well, no, meta is kind of like, this is what will help you get this done in the best time, or the best way to get it done quicker or easier to make your life easier. But by no means should like people be uncomfortable if they don't want to, right? So I do agree, if people, if they're in a raid and they're comfortable, or whatever they're doing, like fractal or something, and they're comfortable playing what they want to play, say, and like assuming that they don't want to play whatever meta they were suggested, that's fine. And Guild Wars 2, for that reason, is also why skill dictates the class, right? Because Guild Wars 2 teaches you to be skillful, not like gear grind. You can have the best gear in Guild Wars 2. You could have legendary, but someone with exotic could probably be better than you, because it's all about skill at the end of the day. It's not about what you have as your gear. But when I mean like there's some cases why you should play the meta, it's really where like if people are in the group are trying to get something done and your class is obviously slowing them behind, that's where like I feel like people get offended. It's like, oh, this group hates me or something. And it's like, well, no, like if it's in a case where your class really is dragging the group down, then that's really a time where you maybe need to make the exception in the group. That's not maybe the time where you're like, I just want to play what I want to play. I don't care about anything else. But that doesn't mean that like you can't always that doesn't mean that you have to always be doing that. Like you always have to do what the group tells you. Some cases it's fine, you can play the class that you want and it might take a little longer, but if you're very good at that class, you'll still perform well. But sometimes some classes really are not built for the type of content that maybe you're trying to get done, and it's a struggle. And like I don't know if people sometimes like to hear that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I am a big advocate of playing what you want to play. But like you said, Guild Wars 2 is very much a skill-based game. And so if you play something that's easier to play or that's more meta or whatever, then you may have a better shot at doing well at the raid. So when I'm training people in raids, I say, hey, there's a few classes that are just way easier to play. Like, do I think you should play Condi Core NG in raids if you're a new player? Probably not, right? Do I do it sometimes? Yeah, I do it because, well, I know the raids pretty well at this point, and am I going to get the best DPS? No, but I know that I'm going to be sufficient. And so I really want people to know that they can play whatever they want, as long as they're willing to put in the effort to learn how that class works and how it works against that particular encounter. Because people love Necro. They want to play Reaper. Yo, Reaper has a bad rap in the game for like sucking at raids, but in reality, Reaper can be like insanely good, especially at some bosses. But if you're going to play Reaper at Cairn, you better be able to, not get hit by the mechanics. Otherwise, you're going to lose your shroud and you're going to do very little DPS. So as long as people are willing to put in the effort, I'd say play whatever you want. And to the people that are like demanding meta, those people are the reason that it is so difficult to get raids going on NA. I would ask those people, if you're really so focused on getting the the meta comp that you're willing to wait an extra 30 to 40 minutes to get the raid done, you're like,
You're not gonna
I'm not
finish
sure
it.
that's
Yeah.
quite as efficient as they think it is.
I think it's also like people forget, like in raid, it's really about mechanics as well. Like as much as like the class that you play needs to be at least a class that's doable for the boss that you want to kill, but really mechanics is also important. So it's like that part of the thing gets forgotten in the discussion, and even with other things that happen, like people forget, like, well, you also need someone that's good at the mechanics. You can't just have someone can have like the best like benchmarks, but if they have no idea how the mechanics of the boss works, they're not gonna actually be efficient. They're gonna actually probably even kill the group because they don't know how the mechanics work.
Yeah, I usually tell people when we're training Veil Guardian, I say, look, I don't care how much damage you do. If you get teleported by the blue circles, I'm gonna die inside. Like you have to just not get hit by those mechanics, because anytime you get hit by the mechanics, you're doing less damage. And so anytime you go down, you're not doing damage. So really, I don't care like if your rotations are perfect when you're doing a boss or anything, or if you're playing meta. None of that matters. It's how do you engage with that encounter? Can you respond to the mechanics? Can you adjust? Because look, I've been doing meme runs for raids, and let me tell you, I've done Wing 4 Guardian only. I've done Core Guardian only at VG, and then I killed Gorse with Core Guardian only. I did Core Warrior only the other night. Core NG only. Like it's it's totally possible if you're willing, if you know the mechanics and you can just avoid getting wrecked by mechanics, and you could do all of these things actually fairly easily.
Yeah,
just got to adjust.
just
You don't
gotta
need the meta to be successful. I killed Deimos faster with an all Guardian group than I did in like 4 hours of Pugs.
I think it's also, it's like,
And it's just because we knew the mechanics.
yeah, it's like takes practice to know the mechanics. Like as it just takes practice as well. Like it's like, you're not gonna get something done on, you can in your first try, but it's like, you'll get better the more you do that thing. So it's like, just put more practice to it and you'll get there. But to segue back into, because again, like this has been an ongoing thing where people talk about, you need to do this, you need to do that, like whether it's in raids and fractals and even open world. I feel like some people sometimes try to say something in open world where it's like, are you really gonna tell 50 people in the squad what to play, kind of thing?
Okay, that reminds me of a Reddit thread. There was a Reddit, I don't know if you read this, there was this Reddit thread where somebody had this like big, they like screenshot this like massive whisper conversation with somebody where they were like, yo, you're running this signet on your thief, and it's like totally useless in open world. And they just were going like back and forth about it. And then all the comments in the Reddit thread were like, who cares? Right? Like, why would you judge what somebody else is playing in open world? And I just think it's like so crazy that people are so like, they're so upset by what other people are doing in open world and stuff, that they're willing to whisper someone and say that like they suck because they're running a signet. Like
that's kind of yikes. Which also go back into the Reddit discussion. What is it that you think about like the Reddit community that makes it like, because when we talk about, like, everyone talks about like how Guild Wars 2, minus all the bad things, but in general, it's always the opinion of Guild Wars 2 as one of the nicest communities. And I feel like Reddit is supposed to be that like majority of that, like where that idea came from, that Guild Wars 2 is a nice community. But why is it that we see that a lot of times people get their things downvoted? People kind of, anytime someone says an opinion, it's not really more of like a constructive discussion, more of just people trying to say why their opinion's right and yours is wrong. Where's that disconnect with that versus what you see on Twitch and YouTube? It feels like two different communities to me.
Yeah, I think it's the demographics are very different. Like I suggested, Guild Wars 2 maybe has an older demographic. Normally, Reddit kind of caters to everybody, but normally has people kind of in their mid-20s to early 30s, I would say. And obviously there's far younger, far older, but where I think the disconnect is well, here's one. It seems like the demographic on Reddit is very divided into two. You've got people that are like, me like shiny Final Fantasy inspired bird mount. I love that. 1,000 upvotes. Cat gem store content. 1,000 upvotes. I like the bird. Right? They just like, I'm gonna hit the button. I like the bird. And then you've got all these people that are just like, the people that like the bird, they don't know anything about the game. They just like the shiny. And it's okay. It's okay for it's okay for both to coexist, but it seems that there's a lot of animosity between both of those groups. And as a result, on Reddit in particular, those groups like fight. And so the positivity that you see like within the game and within like all these little sub communities within the game, it's not it's not perfectly represented on Reddit. There's obviously times where it certainly shines and people say like, this is the best game ever. I'm new to the game. Look what these people did for me. And I think those are very important. But then there are posts where people just roast each other and just get like super angry about like the dumbest things. I saw a content creator the other day, a newer content creator, one who I quite like, and he had posted a YouTube video. And I don't know that he had posted a lot of YouTube content. And he posted this video, and it was a guide on how to use a particular class. Was the guide perfect? I watched a few minutes of it, and I was like, this isn't quite exactly how it goes. Like, there's a little bit of misinformation there, but overall, it was pretty good, right? Overall, if you were a new player and you watched that whole guide and you did what he said, you'd come out doing fairly well. The comments are all people just slamming him, right? They're all just people like, hey, this, not another one of these. This sucks because you don't know about how this trait really works. Or you don't know about how this, or you don't play with the same hotkeys that I do. Or like seriously, the most petty little things.
Wow.
And I look at that and I go, okay, if I'm a new player and I'm like, what's the Guild Wars 2 community like? And I go to the Reddits and I see this post and then I just read people roasting the content creator. I'm kind of like, well.
If they're going to roast the content creator, imagine what they're going to do when someone who's not a content creator posts, you know, like.
And what do they do? I don't know if you've ever gone to new on the Guild Wars 2 subreddit, but what happens is somebody new will come in and they'll ask some questions, and some of the questions are fairly basic and they probably should have just checked the sidebar. But instead of saying, hey, you should check the sidebar, or hey, whisper me in game if you need help or whatever, what they do is they just say, read. Like they just say, read your skills, or try harder, bro, or they just downvote their posts so nobody sees it. And that's not very good.
I didn't understand like really the idea of why they downvote something, right? Like a new player, like I know that like sometimes even like the thread gets closed when someone asks a question that's like they could have actually checked like what's pinned on the Reddit itself. But I never saw the reason why people would downvote, not even just to like newer players asking questions that like have been answered multiple times, but even things like someone posting a video, or somebody even someone just promoting like a particular like something. I've seen people downvote stuff like hero point trains. Someone's like actively taking some of their time to run a full hero point train for a community and like telling them the times they'll be available, and it's like, people are, why are you downvoting something that someone's providing out of their time to help probably people who might actually need it, right? And it's, I don't know what's with the downvote mentality. Like I feel like there's no use for it. I don't know if
there have been times when I felt like Reddit in particular is very against their content creators, and I think that's because when I compare the Guild Wars 2 subreddit to something like the 2007 Scape subreddit, when a content creator posts something on the 2007 Scape subreddit, like there's like a million awards. People like lose their mind. They're like so proud and excited of their content creators, right? Like it's like a big deal to be a content creator in the RuneScape community. And a lot of them can do it like full time because there's just so much hype around that, and people are very engaged in that universe. But for Guild Wars 2, that doesn't seem to exist. At least not even close in the same way. Now, granted, the demographics are very, very different, so that's part of it. But for whatever reason, I think a lot of people have misconceptions about content creators or something. They like think that all of these Guild Wars 2 content creators are like making bank. I don't know. I don't know about you, but like I'm not in it for the money. If I was in it for the money, I'd be doing like a billion other things to make money. I just like the game.
Yeah.
I always joke with people. I like the game like I like the stock. GME to the moon, Guild Wars 2 to the moon.
No, it's like
I just like the game.
Well, I mean, there's like what 200,000 people on the subreddit, right? Something like that. About that.
Yeah.
And
that's accurate. Yeah.
About like on Twitch, it's like I don't know the numbers for the YouTube community because I mean there's some outliers over there, but on Twitch, I mean there's probably only about like 5,000 to 8,000 people who watch Twitch on a active basis, right? Because at any given time, the Twitch category for Guild Wars 2 at least has 1,000 viewers at any given time. So I mean, you would assume there's about 5,000 to 8,000 in total. You know, so
yeah, it floats like the lowest I see Guild Wars 2 get is just under 1,000 at like the NA prime time. It can be just around 1,000. Then as it gets later, it starts to go to like 700-800. But yeah, you're pretty correct on that. It's a smaller community for sure.
And the thing is, on YouTube, I'm not sure because the outliers that I seen on like so Wooden Potatoes is an outlier. I mean, minus he's also been doing this since Guild Wars 1, so he's pretty much the longest content creator for Guild Wars in general, right? Then you have like Muckluck, you got Iron Maiden, you got Mighty Teapot. You know, you have a few outliers who've grown a lot, but these are also people who've, you know, done a lot for the community in terms of YouTube content creation, not just on Twitch. So it's hard to say how much YouTube is at because then a lot of the other content creators are teetering in the few thousands. It just feels like it's just two different communities. Like you go on Twitch and it's so supportive. Like on Twitch, people like even here, like we've had a few momentarily when we're talking about raid metas. People here in the stream chat like had a bit of a debate between each other, and it was constructive. Like nobody was really, you know, saying anything bad on someone else. It was just really constructive and offering different points and then agreeing with some of each other's points. It's something like you rarely see on Reddit. It's just kind of like, where is that? Like, why is it this way? And is it maybe because there's a younger audience on Twitch that you think that the Reddit has a larger, a larger demographic that's towards the later ages? Is that what it is?
I would love to do surveys or something and like figure that out. I mean, I'm sure that Arenanet themselves have a lot of that kind of data anyway. But it would be very fascinating for me to know, you know, what kind of demographic is the subreddit. There are also like 1 million Guild Wars 2 Facebook groups, and those are generally older people, which I find very interesting. And then Guild Wars 2 has like no presence on Instagram, no presence on TikTok. The Guild Wars 2 Twitter consists of like it's mostly just content creators talking to each other.
On Twitter, yeah.
That sounds kind of bad. That in reality, like if you look up the Guild Wars 2 hashtag, it's people just doing giveaways, showing off their art, and saying that they're an Arenanet partner. That sounds really bad, but that's actually the reality. There's nobody's talking about Guild Wars 2 on Twitter. But going back, it is still like Twitter. Guild Wars 2 Twitter, extremely supportive of each other, right? All of the content creators are just like, we got to make this game great. We got to make it great. Like, this is such a good game. And then on Twitch, people raid each other. They talk to each other. There's very little drama in our community. It seems like you and I play this game completely different, right? Like
Yeah.
you play the trading post really hard. I am stupid when it comes to the trading post. Like, yo, your brother, he looked at my wallet in the game and he was like, "Are you stupid? How come you're not making goals with all of this currency?" And I was like, "I don't know. I've never looked it up." But we play the game completely different, but we're still like friends, right? Like we still communicate, and we still both are we're both a big part of this community in different ways, and we can come together because of the game. I just think that is really neat. It's very, very special that we have that, and that people on Twitch generally are pretty care quite a lot about each other and
Yeah.
want each other to succeed.
And it's like also like most of us, like even though like Guild Wars 2 you could say has like a small community where everyone kind of knows everyone in the Twitch scene, but it's really not like that. Like for example, for a while like you would know of someone, and when you notice like a content creator coming up on Twitch, yeah, like you said, like some of us support each other. Like hey, that's a new person, let's rate them out, let's give them some support, guys. That's the new person streaming, let's give them some support, they seem interesting, go check them out, follow them if you like them. But not all the time that we actually really know each other very well. I mean, like with Sneb, like with you, for a while like we've known of each other, but like this podcast is the first maybe actual conversation we've had, you and I, right? And it just feels like we've known each other for a while.
It's like weird because I feel like we've talked before, but I think it's just because because I've seen you on Twitter, and I've watched your stream. You've rated me before. I mean, I've talked to your brother and played with your brother quite a bit too, which is why
Yeah.
I think I feel like I know you even more because of that. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of positives, at least, that still come to mind, at least for the community. I mean, there's negatives, but then there's also positives. So going on the positives, what are some things that you appreciate from the community, whether Reddit, whether the Twitch scene, or I'll just Twitch and YouTube together because kind of the same in some way. But what's like some positive that you've seen that like this has actually set out this community from the other MMOs? Something that you really like when someone tells you something about the Guild Wars 2 community, you show them that example and you're like, this is why I love this community. Something that, take your time, think about something.
Yeah, if you're a new player and you are like, hey, I've looked at this game, it's really cool, I want to know how to play, I want to play the game, right? If somebody ever does that, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's on Twitch or YouTube, it's crazy to see how many comments or replies or whatever they'll get where people are just like, do you need a guild? I'll help you get some armor. This is like some basic advice, right? They like refer them to all these resources. People, when somebody comes into this world, they flock to help them. And I also think that even like people forge these very unique friendships in Guild Wars 2. Like there are people that have gotten married because they met in the game. There are people that have like these super long lasting bonds and whatever. Like I've went and actually met people that I met in the game in real life. And I feel like Guild Wars 2 is a very easy game to socialize in, and the social media really just enhances that because people in the community are so quick to step up and help each other, right? It's very, very friendly. Is it perfect? No. But generally it's pretty friendly. And I think that's probably one of the biggest selling points of Guild Wars 2.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, funny enough, like there is ways to show people like, yeah, this is a nice community, just ask around and you'll be fine. I mean, sometimes that that type of like read or like go check the rules before you post thing, they can come up, but like I always find that like people are always willing, and if you go on, not even just on Twitch or YouTube, if you even go on Discords, people are generally like very helpful. Another section of the game which Discord has kind of taken over like the gaming community of any MMO, right? Like Discords have become the go-to place if you really want like to talk to people. And to switch, the topic from when people are helpful in the game, what do you see in Discords that you've loved as well? Like things that people have offered. Have you seen people offer to just get into a voice chat and be like, hey, just hit me up, we'll talk on voice and things like that? Has that been something that you've noticed?
Oh yeah, I see that all the time. Usually what happens is somebody will be in like they'll be in some other platform, whether it's Twitch or Facebook or in the game, and they'll say, hey, I could like explain all this to you in a short novel, or we can just hop on Discord and I can help guide you through. I could like show you my screen and, show you what the best settings are, how to turn off camera shake, like those sorts of things. I see that a lot on Discord. I actually have a very interesting view, I think, of Discord, and just this expands to pretty much all MMOs. And I'm curious what you think about this. I think that Discord is a good thing mostly, and has like a few cons, a few negatives. The main negative is that people use the Discord. The Discord is inherently an informal tool for community within this game, right? It's not set up by Arenanet, so Arenanet doesn't control it, but it's really the way that a lot of people build the community, talk, discuss ideas, form up groups, etc. On NA, it's like it's absolutely ravaged the raid community. Like nobody is in the LFG ever. So if you're a new player and you go to the LFG and you look, like, I'm gonna press the button right now. Let's see. How many raid LFGs are there on a Sunday? 0. There are 0 groups right now on NA looking for raids. 0. And that's because those groups are looking on Discord. And so it's good that those people are able to talk on Discord. And I think that overall that's a net positive because, they're helping each other, they're doing good things. But it also presents a very interesting issue for Arenanet and for us as the community in general. You get these people, they're interested in raids. They press Y in the game, they go to LFG, they click on raids, they say looking for more, and there are 0 groups. What does that suggest to them about the activity of raids in the game? It's actually not representative of what's really going on.
Yeah.
And so it's my belief that one of two things needs to happen. Either Arenanet needs to partner with things like Raid Academy and actually advertise them in the game, like in the LFG, so that people know they exist, so that they become less of an informal thing. Or, they have to do something to make the Raid LFG better. And I think the easiest one is the first one for them. Yeah, what do you think about that? I guess what I'm saying is it's a super good thing. I see people doing good things all the time, but it doesn't come without consequence.
Yeah. I can see why, yeah, because when you say 0, reality is like you said, like there's actually 3-4 different Discords in the game that dedicate to just doing raids with pugs and stuff. And yeah, like if you go to those Discords, Raid Academy, I can't remember all of them by name, but Crossroads for EU or whatever it is, right? It's definitely like you look at those posts and it's like there's 5, 6 being posted within the few hours or something. So it's like it's definitely not 0. And I can say, at least speaking from at least the farming train perspective, because the Overflow Trading Discord does meta trains, whether it's farming the LS4 meta, whether it's doing DWC or any of the other metas like HOT metas. We also do a lot of our posts in the Discord, right? Like we have an alerts channel. And some commanders will post that in the LFG in open world, but some will not actually. Some will like just the only convenience to post it in the open world is if you're trying to like put it there for people to join. But when it's already full, no one really bothers to post it again. Like they'll post it for one map, and then like the next maps that they keep going to, it will miss out. But yeah, I don't know if Anet, that's something that's kind of been one of Anet's weaknesses, is they for some reason fail to capitalize on such things like that, where you have a community that basically built a training Discord. You have a community that built a farming Discord. You have a community that built open world meta Discord. Whatever it is, I don't know why there's a thing that they have of acknowledging those communities. And it kind of brings things down, because Discord really has taken over, at least for Guild Wars 2. Discord is a heavy part of the game, right? Whether you like it or not, you're gonna need to use Discord in Guild Wars 2, because that's where everyone communicates at this point. Nobody uses TeamSpeak, right? Or Ventrilo, like, which was, something that happened.
People hardly talk in the game, right? I mean, well, it depends where you are, but most of the time, like if you're in a meta map and you see there's a big squad, or you're in world versus world and there's a big squad, they're not saying anything because they're only talking in Discord. So you think that the game isn't very social, but it is.
And the thing is, even in World vs. World, the only interactions people talk about in team chat is to update each other's maps, right? And maybe scouting stuff. And the only other time you'll see people talk in the team chat or map chat is literally them spamming, like, join this Discord for the commander, right? Because the commander's in a Discord, and he's commanding there. So I don't know, do you see a solution like that where Anet would consider that Discord community has become such a huge part of this game that they would need to do something to, like, maybe represent and in a way, like, actually help their game, because the activity definitely is there, but it, like you said, it's not resonating on the LFG sometimes.
Yeah, Sneb activated. I'm really opinionated about this. I think that perhaps one of the greatest failures of Guild Wars 2 is its inability to capitalize on content creators as marketing tools. And I know they have like a partner program and stuff, but in my opinion, it's poorly managed and very vague and unclear as to what the requirements are, how you get in, etc. And I think if they were to partner with many of these guilds, and I think they have done a little bit in the past, but I think if they were to be more on top of those sorts of things within the community, that you wouldn't have as many people leaving the game. I feel like there's a lot of people that leave because they get bored, right? They just get bored, and or these communities get burnt out because they don't feel like they have any sort of recognition or support. And to me, that's quite problematic.
So
there's a lot I would change about the partner program, and one of them would definitely be to support the communities that are actively doing meta trains, that are actively doing raid training. All of those things are really the lifeblood of Guild Wars 2 at this point. If we didn't have community events, fashion shows, charity drives, PvP tournaments, raid tournaments, all of those things, we'd have a big problem. Like, there just would be no game at that point. A lot of people are just playing Guild Wars 2 right now because of the community. And so it absolutely boggles my mind that people aren't doing more at least the marketing department isn't doing more to capitalize on that. I mean, they've done some things, like they had this big thing 2 years ago where there were like Guild Wars 2 friendships. They tried to do some kind of campaign around that, but it's not quite what I think needs to be done. I mean, I can give so many examples of just ways in which this thing is so mismanaged. But overall, yes, all of these communities that are keeping people in the game need to be supported. They need to be supported officially in some way. Arenanet has done this in the past. In Guild Wars 1, they used to have, I think it was Guild of the Month. Do you remember that? Guild of the Month, Guild of the Week?
Yeah.
Something like that.
They showcase some. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was a huge deal. They used to actually get someone at Arenanet and interview the guild leaders and officers. They used to interview them, and then they'd post the interview and talk about the guild and promote it, promote their website, and they put it right on their front page of their website. And I remember like that was such a big deal to those guilds. Like there were guilds that instantly, there were guilds that were full alliances, right? So they had 10 guilds under one tag, and they were like, they're just massive, and they did so much in the community, whether it was dungeon runs or just helping people get through parts of the game or whatever. And they blew up when Arenanet would do that. And to me now, Arenet's just completely silent about a lot of these things. I shouldn't say completely. They do some things, but I just don't understand. I wish I could understand more why the strategy that they're taking doesn't include helping these individual guilds or content creators or web or like Discord channels, etc. more. I think there's just so much more to be done there, and it's so untapped. And I think that there are lots of people that are just getting tired and they're giving up, right? Because they've been at this for so long and they've done so much for the community, but they get zero recognition or help. So yeah, there's so much I could say about that.
Which I actually want to bring,
it's a big topic.
Honestly, like you brought a good amount of points actually, which I want to touch upon, which we'll probably even get into more specifics. So one thing, like you said about the partner program, do you feel like it should apply to communities too? Like, for example, because let's look at a few or one that comes to mind, the Guild Wars 2 Raid League. I don't know if you know about them, but
yes, they don't have any sort of affiliation with Arenanet?
They apparently got partnered with Arenanet recently. The Raid League started out like around this time last year, and by I believe like in around November, December, Arenanet decided to partner up with them and make them an Arenanet partner. So now they actually can do gem giveaways and things of that kind. And they're supported now by, Arenanet. They can get like any now and then Arenanet might throw a blog post for them. But that's very, that's not very consistent. They don't always do that. So, like, it's very broad. Like you said, the program itself doesn't specifically say what dictates you being a ANET partner, right? Like there's broad specifics, and I think the only way they said is if you create content for the game, which is like, do the communities that like, host events or host things like that don't particularly stream those events or put those events on YouTube, is that not content for the game in some way? Or don't they have like a large presence where they maybe should be partner? What do you think of that?
Well,
because you and I are both in the same
we've got
boat.
content creators that have 40,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, massive Twitch followings, 500 plus subs on Twitch, partnered on Twitch, partnered on YouTube, large Twitter followings, hundreds of thousands of views on Guild Wars 2 content on YouTube, and they're not partnered.
I'm not partnered.
Like,
You're not. Are you partnered, by the way?
Oh no, heavens no! You think I would get partnership if they did?
Bro, like
I've applied multiple times, but I see no hope for that, because they don't give you any sort of metrics by which you should be or shouldn't be accepted. And I don't even think I should get partnered yet because I'm too small. I think there are people way ahead in the line of me that should absolutely get some kind of support that don't have any and have heard just nothing.
I'm in that boat. Like I keep telling Darkbringer, who's a ANET dev, like I'm sure my application is just misplaced by mistake or something. But it kind of it kind of frustrates me sometimes, because like I joke about it, and it's become a meme at this point with my community, where like they tell me like at one point, you'll become that Thanos meme where it's like, what did it cost? And I'll be like, everything,
Yeah.
But it's just like, what like frustrates me is like sometimes I see I'm not gonna say names because honestly I can't even remember, but like sometimes I've seen a few streamers who post like 2 or 3 videos and all of a sudden they get Arenanet partner, and I'm like, I'm doing the most here for. I feel like I'm doing the most. I'm doing giveaways. I'm doing community events. Like I'm trying to do competitions. People, trying to cater to every community as possible. And then I'm also supporting other streamers. At one point, I was even funding other people's events for them. And I'm just like, so where is it that doesn't make me partner? Because I've seen people who got partner, and I'm just like, if they got partner, wouldn't I have done enough to be partner too? And things like when I look at your stream, like, bro, you're like one of their biggest walking advertisement. You got the freaking bandana and the shirt. Like, you're repping this game. And like, how is he not
you ain't
partner?
seen nothing. You ain't seen nothing. Watch this.
Guys, thank you so much for the
It's gonna
Twitch
take me a second to
Prime.
get into this.
Mirar and Terrini, thank you so much for the Twitch Prime subscription. Yeah, like, yo, like, snap for partner, guys.
This is a sealed collector's edition of Guild Wars 1.
Oh, wow. Oh, you haven't opened it,
Sealed.
huh?
No, sealed. I've also got Factions and Nightfall back there, all sealed. My wife made these quaggins. I mean, like, if I take the camera here, I can show you. I've got a massive collection. I've got every Guild Wars 1 pin that they gave away at events, autographed art, autographed copies of the game, a sealed Razor Death Adder from like 2006 that is Guild Wars themed. I've got the vinyls. I've got over here, I've got a Guild Wars Nightfall, advertisement from GameStop, right? A whole room.
Bro, you're
and
like,
I've got like the stuffed animals, and it's I love the game, but yeah, I don't know.
he is a Guild Wars tuner. He's not worthy. A whole room for that dang merch. So someone in the chat is like, I think Sneb likes this game.
You would think. I mean, I mostly, I suppose, market my stream to new players, and I think I've probably gotten like 20 people to just get into the game, right?
Oh, your wife commented.
I sell this game so hard.
your wife commented, you went to PAX for your honeymoon for Guild Wars 2. Like, that is dedication.
I have the pictures to prove it. They're right here.
Oh, he's got pictures.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, wow. And you can even see the Arenanet, like, Arenanet, like, logo as well, right there at the side, at the left side.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was right as Path of Fire was coming out or something, or had just come out.
So, I mean, yeah, going back to the topic, I mean, what do you think is the solution, and not just the partner program, but in general for Arenanet to help the community make this game better? Because right now, like, the content creators are really carrying the marketing for the game, but Arenanet doesn't realize there's also the Discord, the Reddit, the Twitter, it's pretty much the tiny pockets of each community. They're also, in some way marketing this game, whether it's on YouTube and Twitch or not. Like, you have to take into account the Discord, the Reddit are putting in work to make this game as good as it is. So what do you think is the solution to making the community even more successful?
I would say that Arenanet's biggest vice is their inability to communicate appropriately with their community. They do not know how to talk. They have very poor PR and community relations at this point. They have overpromised and severely underdelivered over the years. And that's a big PR catastrophe for them, whether it was with the legendary weapons, or whether it was with alliances, or whether it was, just inability to balance the game, or promising that they'll balance the game every 3 months and then not saying anything about it. They just don't know how to do PR, it feels like. I think that if they really wanted to utilize their community well, they would be talking to us all the time. Right now, on Twitter the other day, I posted I don't know. I'm just starting to not have as much hype for EOD, and it's because I haven't heard a single thing about it for like 5 months or something, right? Like zero,
5 months. I'm pretty
I haven't
sure.
heard nothing, zero. So
I'm pretty
it's
sure like
problematic.
they announced it like in April or May last year. I have they said anything else? I haven't seen anything since their announcement that it was under development.
I don't recall anything. And to me, that is horrible marketing. But I understand maybe they're trying to I from what it looks like to me, they've had a lot of people transition in and out of the company. And so I feel like maybe they're trying to, really establish expectations. Like they don't want to overpromise again and underdeliver, because if they do that, they're basically ruining their, like, it'll be over. It's the last straw for a lot of people. So there's actually a lot riding on EOD. But ultimately, like, yeah, Kuro just said they just released artwork and that's it. We know nothing, right? And I'm a little bit concerned about that because I have nothing to talk about. This is where I was going with that. The content creators actually have nothing to talk about right now. Zero. Because they haven't trickled anything out, they've established zero hype train. When we talked about how Guild Wars 2 is one of the most hyped MMOs of all time, it's because they were trickling out content, right?
Yeah.
They were constantly feeding us just a little bit, enough to keep us like, oh my, now what? And content creators were like, this is what I think could happen, right? They were making all these videos where they were just super passionate about the game. They're like, we got this new tweet went out, and this is what they said, and this is what I think it means. Right now, it's like, what am I going to talk about? The Doritos campaign? What do I have to say? There's actually nothing to talk about with Guild Wars 2. And I think you see that from a lot of content creators. They're making guides and stuff, which is good, but there's no hype for EOD because they don't know anything about it. And so people have made all these videos that say, this is what I think is going to happen, but they've just run out of things to talk about. There's no momentum right now. And that, combined with, the most recent releases being sort of like minimal content, or they're trying to run pretty lean as they work on the X-Back, there's just nothing. And so overall, it's a, we don't know how to communicate problem. And
they need to do that better.
I would say if Arenanet wants to fix a lot of their issues, they ought to really take a look at their marketing and PR department and analyze what they can do to be better about communicating. It's killing them. PoE wrecks them. OSRS absolutely wrecks them. Pretty much every other company of even similar size just destroys them.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, we're talking about suggestions, right? Solutions. And that's been one of the most, like, talked about suggestion for years. Like, Arenanet, just, market your game. Hey, like, no one's asking you to put in $10,000 a month on marketing. People are like you said, they're just asking for something. And it's weird, like, because, yeah, there hasn't been anything. And I don't know why Arenanet has this thing of, like, it has to be perfect before we let you guys see it. And it's just like, that's not how you hype something. You don't have to show us.
But the crazy thing is that they never release anything perfectly anyway, right? Look at Strikes. They're still bugged, right? Guild Wars 2 has a problem with polish as well. So I don't care if it's polished at this point. I just want to hear something about it. And if they don't do that, you have an issue, because if nobody knows what's coming, people may not invest, right? If there was a surge of players when they announced Cantha, because we're like, gotta prepare for the X-Back. It's been forever, and those players have left. There are players that just log in to flip some stuff on the TP and then get out because they're waiting for content. But you might be able to inspire them if you drip a little bit of content onto their plate.
But it's like, well, here's the thing, right? Like, no one's asking for like a very well done, like, 1 minute game. Like, okay, 1 minute gameplay would be even nice, but like, we're just asking for, like, give us people said, give us a screenshot, give us 10 seconds of a class hitting something, like doing a skill or something, right? And don't even tell us what it is, right? Just be like, elementalist skill. I don't know, like, showcase one.
Look, if I was in the marketing department, I would release the symbol for the specialization of the class in some like fancy artwork, and just have people guess what it is.
What it is, right?
That's it. That's all I would do. And then you know what would happen? Million content creators make videos talking about what they think it is, why they think it's that. There would be discussion about it. People on Twitter would be going crazy about it. They'd be hashtag Guild Wars 2. I think it's this. Betting $20 that it's this, right? Like people would actually have something to talk about. There is actually nothing, right? That they actually have zero, and that is their biggest detriment. It makes I'm getting like super passionate about this because I'm a marketing guy, right? All of my training and stuff is in marketing, and they are just not doing it. Like I don't understand. Like sometimes I get so animated about this on my stream because I can't comprehend. Like it makes absolutely zero sense to me why they run things the way they do.
I don't know.
And I always asterisk this with, you know what? There's a chance that they have data and stuff, or they know something that I don't know.
But here's the thing.
But it just feels so wrong.
Like they've done it before with POF, right? Marketing POF kind of. Although I will still say POF's marketing was actually handled very, very badly because POF literally they announced the expansion was coming out. They hyped it all for those 3 months, but like literally the expansion from the announcement to the release was all done. The whole marketing was done in 3 months, and yes, they gave us a lot to like eat and get like excited for. One of the reasons why that expansion was a letdown was because, well, people realized like, holy shit, like POF, as good as it is, and it did introduce some game-changing mechanics such as mounts and other things, and I will definitely say it was a very well done expansion. But people realized that it was really more or less like a living season in one release, basically, right? It was like 6-7 episodes of Living World in one go, with some game-changing features because of obviously an expansion. But here's the thing, like it goes back to one solution, which is really like they just need to communicate. And that's the funny thing, like communicate, and the second one, which we're always in agreement with, like use your content creators, use your communities. It doesn't mean that just because you're someone who posts videos or you're somebody who uploads on YouTube, doesn't mean that like you have to stop there. Like you said, there's Raid Academy, there is I guess a trading community Discord, there is content creator Discords. I'm sure there's one out there. I mean, Heartstuck is kind of that, right? So
yeah,
and then you even have the Guild Wars 2 Reddit Discord. Like Guild Wars 2 has an actual official, like unofficial they call it, but technically the Guild Wars 2 Discord is the official Discord for Guild Wars 2, whether they like it or not. Like they don't use that, and it kind of, you know, it's just kind of like cutting your knees for no reason.
There's just so many wasted opportunities. I'll give you another one that absolutely blows my mind. I love that they really support artists. I think that's really cool. I'm a big fan of the art in the game. I think it's super cool. They have a Guild Wars 2 Twitch channel that has many, many followers, and it'll pull like a couple hundred views every now and then. Sometimes Arenanet has done like play World versus World with the devs. I've joked before that I think that's hilarious because they provide like no updates to World versus World, and yet they are like, come play this game mode that we don't do anything with. But anyway, I digress. I wonder why, you know, they'll put random artists on there doing stuff, and then they won't, you know, host a content creator. You know, they won't host a streamer. You know, why aren't they doing that? You know, why don't they get somebody who does raid training or who does community events on there?
Does the channel literally just go offline? Like, does it not raid anyone?
I'm pretty sure they just sit there. Yeah. I don't think they raid anyone. I've never seen them do it. I could be wrong about that, though.
That's like such wasted
Somebody in the chat can correct me.
Do they not raid any content creator, like, after they go off, when they're gonna, like, just take the stream down? Like, do they just
I'm pretty sure they just end.
That's such wasted opportunity.
But the main point of that is they're funneling themselves into such a niche little thing, right? Like I don't understand why they wouldn't expand that a little bit more. And yeah.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like,
I could go crazy about this one too. They send all their Arenanet partners gems and stuff, and if you as a marketing graduate student, you have to learn to do something called Twitter scraping, and what that means is that you compile Excel sheets of data that show, you know, when a tweet went out, what it said, what hashtags it used, how many responses it got, etc. And for fun, I didn't look into it deeply, but for fun, one time I scraped Guild Wars 2. I scraped just hashtag Guild Wars 2. And like 50% plus of anyone using the hashtag Guild Wars 2 also had hashtag giveaway. And so if you think about that, what does that suggest about the Guild Wars 2 community? To me, it seems like they're like trying to just buy people's love or something. Like they're just trying to highly incentivize people into the game because they don't have any other content right now or something. It feels like a bit desperate. And I don't want to be giveaways are not inherently all bad. That is not what I'm saying at all. In fact, I think they can be really fun and good and whatever. But if all you're doing is pumping out giveaways for your community, and that's all you can do is just chuck out gems, that's not a good showing of like who you are as a company and what your game represents, I suppose. That's sort of where I stand on it. But
yeah, I think like sometimes they do have a small interaction on Twitter with a content creator or something, which I actually love, like that they sometimes do interact, but there's so few and far in between. And like to go back to what you said, like well, you were talking about like how, you know, they really do have a very nice promotion of the art community, right? Which is amazing. Like honestly, the artists of this game do a really good job, right? Like someone saying Sneb is indirectly dissing him, man, because
can I address that? Actually, I think it's important that I explain my stance on the giveaway so that there's no confusion, because I've actually got a lot of flack for this, but I think it's important people understand where I'm coming from. I think that giveaways can be a very positive thing for the Guild Wars 2 community or any MMO community in general, but it's the rate at which we as content creators and Arenanet do these giveaways that have started to affect the community in really negative ways. I can give some examples. Like I don't really do giveaways. And that surprises a lot of people because, you know, we've built up a community. But I've had people come into my channel and say, Sneb, you'd actually have more viewers if you did giveaways. And they just have constantly hammered that into me. There was a time, I think about a year ago or maybe 8 months ago, when the number of giveaways that were in the Guild Wars 2 community was so high that that's like all anyone would see when they went to the Guild Wars 2 category. And it creates this weird expectation from people that play the game. Now, people believe that content creators must give things away constantly. And I think that sets a bad precedent, and it also suggests something about the game. And so I personally don't do a lot of giveaways, though there have been many times where I've heavily debated it because I know that it works, right? Like I know that you can get people to watch you or engage with your content or whatever if you do giveaways. But there's just something that makes me feel like it's not a good idea, because then instead of content, we just have giveaways. Like, you know what I've loved recently? All of the events people are doing. And they're putting all of the giveaways in there, right?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of smaller content creators who do giveaways every single stream, all stream long, because they feel like it's the only way that people will watch Guild Wars 2. And so it's not even that I have anything against people doing giveaways or anything. It's just, it's become this weird problem in our community where people think that it's the only way to get people to engage.
Well, you know,
they think I'm like calling you out. I know you do lots of giveaways. I don't think it's all bad, right? Actually, there's pros and cons to it.
Yeah. So like, here's the thing. So when I started actually streaming, I did giveaways because like, I leaned into like my personality. I was like, okay, so for a time when I started streaming, like people, like, you know, that's the first time, like, say like a Baron or a trader streams in some capacity. And I think maybe the only one before me was maybe Souls. But, you know, at the time I started streaming, I was, you know, at that point 2 or 3 years being the richest player in the game, it was like something not hasn't been done. Like you haven't seen the richest player in the game and how he plays. Now I mean I'm not rich. I think Cassiano's way richer than I am. But like at the time that was me. Like I had been that person, so I took advantage of it. Like I leaned into that personality of like, oh yeah, I got gold. I'll give you guys gold on stream. And I remember like at some point in like between March to like June or July last year, when I got my computer and I start, people start to see who I was, like my face and everything. I started to slowly sometimes phase out the giveaways, like where like the stream would literally not have any giveaways until like maybe the last 5 minutes of the stream. So like anyone who came in like would just be like, oh, okay. I would do that to see like how many people actually come into the stream just for the giveaway and who leaves. And then at some point I would even like just have streams where like I didn't even give away anything. And then recently I came back to the game after my surgery. I decided to just do the streams, do the giveaways on every stream, because I was like, well, you know what? Like it's unique to who I am. Nobody can do it except me and maybe very few others, like Enko and Souls. And now Cassiano, because Cassiano streams. So I was like, very few of us can do that where we can afford to give away every stream without like being like, this hurts my wallet. So that's where I leaned into it. So, but I know there is cons. There's cons.
I'll go
like
even deeper with this.
No, I mean, like you said, there's cons with it, right? The cons are like, well, you understand that there's a certain crowd that you're attracting that will only be there for that, right? And I know that that's definitely like not the crowd that you always want to have. You want people who will be there regardless if you do the giveaway or not. But I think I'm at this point where I've actually created like a following of a community who generally is there to watch me and not just there. And some of the people who have been watching the stream have been here for months. Like they're not someone who just followed me like in the last 2 months. They're people who have seen me even before the days when I was like showing my face on camera. It was like they know me from very late 2019, a period of time where people didn't even know I was streaming. Cynthia's like, are you sure about that? And I'm like, oh boy, exposed. So yeah, but you wanted to say something to that, right? And also to defense of that, because you weren't actually attacking, you were just giving an opinion.
Oh yeah, I'm not on the attack. I think this is where people get confused, because they think that I'm saying that anyone that does giveaways is a bad person, and that is absolutely false. What I actually think is happening is that we've perpetuated a giveaway culture to the point where it's expected that content creators do this in Guild Wars 2 in lieu of content. So I'll give you an example. I've got into streams where their whole channel is just giveaway. Like, and what I mean by that is it's in their title. You go in there, in their chat, all people ask about when's the giveaway, when's the giveaway, when's the giveaway, and then the giveaway happens, and they're like, all right, next giveaway. And then instead of like talking about what they're doing, talking about the game, showing their personality, they're just like, hey, don't forget about the giveaway that's happening in 5 minutes. And it gets to the point where it's not even about the game or the content creator more. It's about winning something. And I feel like that's a shame, because we have so much more to offer, right? We have so much more to offer as a community than just saying, come into my channel and you'll get 200 gold if you have this random shot at it. I think there's much more that can be done. And so when people do giveaways with content, I think that's also good. I also take issue with people that really, well, not with people necessarily, with the concept of doing giveaways and sub luck. I think that's a dangerous line. I think it's very close to RMT, and I'm actually surprised that there hasn't been more discussion about that. I can give an example. Like, there are people that'll be like, all right, I'm giving away, a legendary weapon. Subs have 20 times sub luck. And you're like, so, whoa, actually, okay, so everybody does have a chance.
I have a response about that, because this was actually something Enko and I actually did research on. Like a few months ago. So
it's not illegal. It's not.
It's not illegal.
I've looked into it too.
Yeah, which the illegal part is
it's
like
close.
Well, I don't know if it's close. I guess you are increasing chances of people who've paid, But like we've looked at all the guidelines, and so if you have sub only giveaways, that's definitely illegal because then you're actually running a lottery,
Yes.
which that's you're not legally a certified person to run such a thing. So that's illegal. Definitely. Anyone who does sub luck or sub only giveaways on Twitch, those are actually illegal. And you can even get sued for that. But if you do sub luck, Subluck, we've tried as much as we can to see if Subluck has anything in the terms where it's like even like borderline, and we haven't honestly found anything that says Subluck is even remotely close to being on the line or anything.
No, it's totally fine. But I'm just saying for me, it seems close, and I'll explain why. I did some research because I had looked at what some other content creators were doing when they were giving away legendary weapons all the time and stuff, and I was like, man, like how are they able to do that? Because I was wondering if it was just simply they have a lot of gold because they're playing the TP, and for lots of people that's true. But then I thought, okay, well, what if I were to just buy gems, convert it to gold, and then do these things on either Patreon or Twitch? What would happen? And I started to do some math, and I realized that if you hit a certain threshold of patrons or subs, you could actually turn a profit by buying gems, converting into gold, buying legendary weapons, and marketing a giveaway.
Are
And
you
when I realized
calling
that,
out
I
a
was like,
specific
ooh.
instrument here? Are you calling out an instrument of a certain name?
I'm not calling out anyone. I just am thinking that for me, I don't know if I like that because it's very close. It is totally legal and everything. You're not going against TOS. But for me, it just seems so close that I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. And I guess that's just where I stand. And like I know other people may disagree with that, and that's totally fine. That doesn't make me hold any ill will towards them or anything. I just for me, I couldn't do it, or it just would feel so strange. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so there is a certain person that does this, by the way, which I'll not name because there's another person. Anko would actually have a lot to say about this person. And just to go back to it, I guess. I don't know. It's like the way it seems is like whenever you want to attract the other communities like Reddit, it's like giveaway or we're not watching your stream kind of way. So I do agree, like in some ways
you have to bribe them to watch,
like
basically,
you
right?
basically have to do that. And I guess that also lies on Anet's fault that like they've accustomed people that, you know, you're only worth your content's only worth it if you have something to add to people and give it to them. And it's just like the actual...
Well, and they perpetuate that too with their partner program and gem giveaways and stuff. They just do, right? They don't probably mean it to have that effect, but it does. When people look at Guild Wars 2 content creators now, they think, what's in it for me?
That's the thing.
Which I think is and that's not everyone. I think that, you know, that population you're talking about, that they're only going to go to an event if there's some kind of thing in it for them.
Yeah.
They're not even truly engaging with the content. They're just trying to get some virtual gold.
It is what it is. I mean, honestly, we need a podcast number 2, you and I, by the way, because we have a lot to talk about. I do have to.
I'm like really passionate about that subject in particular, because when I started streaming, that's kind of when all of the giveaway craze happened, and I wasn't doing giveaways. I've done like little spontaneous things where I was like, if I get a Drakkar Horde here, I'm gonna give away 100 gold, and then I do, and it's like crazy or whatever. But otherwise I have never advertised giveaways in that way, and I feel very privileged and lucky that I have anyone that watches me, because there's a lot of people that they feel like the only way to compete is to just have giveaway in your title and constantly be promoting that, and that is it is effective. I know that it's effective, and I know exactly how it works, but it puts it puts people in a weird spot, I think.
Yeah, because you
sometimes.
also encourage that behavior, I guess, to other not to other streamers, but you encourage it that like when they go to another streamer, some people will be like, "Oh, he didn't give anything, so I'm not gonna watch."
Yeah.
And then
Well, if you see the top 3 streamers on the Guild Wars 2 category all advertising giveaway in their title, and you're you're trying to get into content creation or whatever, and you look at that, what do you think, right? You're like, okay, well, if I want to be like them, then I need to do giveaways. And to be fair, this isn't an issue that's just within the Guild Wars 2 community. There's a lot of Facebook groups and stuff where people are like, please come watch my stream. I'm giving away Steam keys, and they'll do kind of like whatever they can. But it's just interesting how this has sort of permeated the community over time, and what it means for people that are newly engaging with the content and stuff.
well, the thing is, and I think the most important part of that is like people need to realize, don't kill your actual financial, income. Like don't use your actual money if you can't afford to do these giveaways, or even in the sense of like, don't feel like you have to always do it for every single video. And I actually thought about that, like when I started like on YouTube, I was like, damn, I'm like, if I really want to get some traction going, I'm going to need to do giveaways on these videos to get as many subs. And then honestly, like I realized, like, you know what, like if a video doesn't do too well, so what? Like, you know what, like maybe I'm supposed to switch up the content and formula, and that's what you do. Like you kind of just want to experiment with other things. But I think one mistake people and content creators in general do is like they feel like they have to spend money to get people to watch their stream, and things like real money sometimes, right? Like they're like, I need to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't have that much income in real life, you're going to hurt your real, your actual, day to day, for something that's like might or might not get your return. Like you're going to actually harm yourself, your actual living expense. So
I'm not even sure if it's even that one that I agree with you. What I'm actually most concerned about is I know that there have been people that have spent 150, 200 bucks on Guild Wars 2 keys and given away keys to the game and stuff, and their stream, blows up, right? Because they're giving away the game, right? And they do this consistently for a month or two, and they're getting 50 to 100 viewers, and they're just riding this like insane high. And then they're like, okay, well, now I can turn it off, right? I can stop, and people are going to, still come and enjoy the content. Those people go to 3 viewers. And the reason is because they didn't actually have any content, right? They never built a community. They never really got there. They just focused everything on the giveaways. And so if your community is 100% giveaways, and your whole stream focus and your content is giveaways, and then you take that away, it's like restarting. And I actually am very concerned for like the mental health of some of these people that do that, because it's actually very it hurts, right? Like if you do that and you feel like these people care about you and whatever, and they like being a part of a community, and then suddenly you have no one, that hurts, right? That stings, because it just sucks, right? And I feel like I can empathize with that, but I feel like that's one of the reasons why if anybody were to ever ask, what should I do? I want to stream Guild Wars 2, and I would say, well, just do it because you love it, because that's what you should do anyway.
And also,
if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
If you want viewers, like if anyone who's starting out and they're like, how do I get viewers? Well, start with your friends, start with your guildmates, start with your, people that in your circle anyway, and just be like, hey, can you just maybe watch the stream, type a little, like something as basic as that, right? And like, and then just be comfortable. And if you're not comfortable to talk to camera, and or even if you find it awkward to talk to yourself, even though there's no one watching the stream, just keep it going. See how long you can keep it going. That's the only way you're gonna improve. You're not gonna be quick about it like that. Sometimes you can actually be lucky and say you kind of have you're kind of a known person in your community, and like you might already have a following as soon as you start streaming. Sometimes you might not. It's gonna be different for everybody. But funny enough, actually, like when I started streaming, I didn't have that awkward moment of like nobody to talk to, because like everybody at that point had known who I was. And it's like when I started streaming, it was like right into the deep end. Like, okay, you're gonna have 20, 30 people talking on your stream right now, and you have to like basically reply. So I didn't have that phase where I had to like practice. My practice was basically right off the start. I'm in the deep end and people are talking to me. I think you also kind of did some of that as well. Like very few
Well, I mean,
streamers.
I had kind of the opposite experience actually, because I
Oh,
started with like nothing, right? I mean, I had streamed very intermittently before, but I never had like a big following or anything. I just and so one day after not streaming for like a year plus, and when I did stream, it'd be like once, and then 6 months later, once again.
oh,
Um, so I mean, I started with basically nothing, right? I had nobody watching, and I was just talking to myself. and but because I'm a public speaker and stuff, I kind of knew I kind of had a strategy, right? I'm like, I'm not going to go in and just be silent playing this game. Nobody wants to watch that. I'm going to talk. And even if it's to nobody, I don't care. I'm having fun. Because for me, really, it was just about a way to connect with people, because I was lonely in the pandemic and I missed my friends and stuff. And I
yeah.
wanted to make new ones. So I started with the Drakkar thing. And yes, somebody did say, hey, you should stream this, but nobody was watching the stream really at the beginning. I think I had like 5 viewers. But then I started telling people I was streaming our Drakkar run and that they needed to come listen to my motivational speech. And like I created a community around that. And so it very quickly kind of took off. But it was because at the beginning I was willing to be there talking to myself the whole time.
I mean, gets the practice in though, doesn't it? That definitely helps though if you have like a public speaking experience, which I also kind of had, I guess, because I'd been in those situations too as a finance student. And then also, of course, like I feel like naturally I was okay with speaking and having like presentations. But so we're kind of going into a tangent, and we kind of have to end soon. So closing remarks before we get into the closing remarks. Suggestions, just to wrap up, what is your top 3 suggestions to making the community of Guild Wars 2 better, whether that's between Anet and the community or the community in general? So 3 or 4 like top points that you think.
Making the community better. I think people ought to be a little bit more forgiving in the Guild Wars 2 community, or tolerant rather. And what I mean is, if you are a new player and you've been dissed one time or kicked out of a raid group, maybe you give it another shot. Realize that all people are not like that, and that the raid community is not all like that one person. If you are a hardcore raider or something, and you're super annoyed by the noobs, just realize that you were there once.
Fair enough.
Another thing, I think most of my points are really for Arenanet. If I were, because a lot of people try to say like, we're the community, we choose how the game goes. No, that's not how this all works. Like, yes, we have an impact, but you have to realize that this ship is being piloted or captained by a company, by a group of people. And so really they form the biggest part of the culture. They decide what this game is or isn't and who it's targeted towards. And so I would say that if Arenanet wants to help improve the community, because they have such a good community already, you have such a good foundation, what I think they ought to do is communicate. And that comes in a bunch of ways. One, tell us what's actually going on. Be real with us. If they are struggling right now, if they were struggling in the pandemic, and it was hard to make content because of all of that, all they had to do was say, hey, like all of you, this pandemic has been rough on us and we're doing our very best. This is what we're working on. This is how we're adjusting. Just be real, because then I would feel less like I'm talking to a company and more like I'm talking to a person. And I feel like more people would be able to, forgive them for some of those things. Then I would also go out and actually do things for, like, actually revamp the partner program. I would, put more effort into, not only poaching people from other games, but actually rewarding the people that are super loyal to their franchise and that have been keeping people in the game. Because retention and sales, you're a finance guy. Retention and sales are both very important. So you get that new customer, but if you don't keep them in there, they're not buying more gems. They're not telling their friends about the game. It's just as important to keep people in the game as it is to get new players. And you know what? It's cheaper to keep people in the game. And I feel like content creators are one of the ways to do that. And it has been kind of a weak point of theirs for some time. They have far too many partners that have given up or just don't make content very often or whatever, and missed opportunity.
Definitely. Yeah, I really hope like they take advantage of that, and I hope they realize that like sometimes like don't have to try and make something as good as you want it to be and then let us like I guess salivate on whatever you release. Just release, it's not gonna kill you if you release something. So yeah, a couple of mistakes I think they could improve on is like, hey, communicate better, show us something, let people hype your game even if it's a simple screenshot. And then like you said, like take chances with your community, because they're the ones who are also at the end of the day keeping this game alive. And I guess one thing I would suggest as well on top of what you suggested is maybe like Arenanet should don't be afraid to piss off your community. Like, I mean, you kind of done a good job sometimes of doing that in some cases, but I feel like Arenanet has this idea of like they don't want to be canceled or something, and it's like they don't want, that's why they sometimes don't do certain things. And I'm just like you're the company, like you at the end of the day have to do this. Like it doesn't matter if a lot of people disagree. If you think overall this is going to be a long-term thing that turns out to be better for people, they just don't realize it now, go ahead, take your risks. So if my advice would to add on to yours is, Arenanet, don't be afraid to do what you want to do sometimes. Like actually get things done. Take the risk. Don't listen.
Take the risk, then evaluate the risk and communicate that evaluation. Example, DRMs.
Exactly.
Took a risk. I don't know if it quite worked how they wanted to. I would love to hear what they have to say about that.
Yeah. Like, hey, I guess with anything you take a risk, right? But like you said, like you can always learn, but if you're not taking enough risks, well, that's a lot of chances that you won't know. It's kind of like that what if. But anyway, we definitely need to do another episode, you and I, by the way, because I feel like, yeah, I
could talk forever. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk forever. And I do want to have another podcast where you and I go into more in-depth details on some of these topics. And I think we covered some good ground here. And then before we end, so we talked about, your journey, what got you into Guild Wars 1, Guild Wars 2, your challenges and what made you become a Guild Wars 2 content creator / streamer, and then the many different topics we've discussed about the Guild Wars 2 community, the main topic today. And this is something now I do with every guest. Is there any closing remarks, anything that you want to let the viewers know on the stream? What's going on in your stream? Anything that you got planned? Basically let people know, hey, what's up in your life right now as a streamer? What do you have to do for the Guild Wars 2 community?
Yeah, well, so in our community, it's the Skane gang. Skane is a flock of geese in flight. There's a lot of lore. We'll ignore that part. But anyway, our community, we have a small guild, and we focus on helping new and returning players kind of get back into the game or learn things about the game. And then we also help players comfortably get into raids. And so if you're somebody who's like, I wanted to try that, but I'm just a little nervous about signing up for something, or I'm a little nervous about talking to these people I don't know or messing up or whatever, I try to provide a place where, we'll see some success. It's not going to be perfect every time, but that we focus on just getting better and improving. And we've helped like 50 plus people get their first raid boss kill so far. So that's every Monday and Wednesday at 7 Eastern. If you go to my stream, twitch.tv/Snebzor, unless I get hit by a car or I have to cancel because of something in real life, it's every Monday and Wednesday around that time. And there's no signups. You just show up and it's first come, first serve. That, and my one thing is I realize that I've probably said some things that might be a little bit polarizing, and I just want to clarify that I actually hold zero ill will towards anyone for anything. I am probably like one of the most chill people because I actually don't get mad about that kind of stuff. I just am somebody who really likes to think and question and in some ways critique, but like with the giveaway thing, for example, there are huge pros and huge cons to it, and I just think it's important that we consider both. And that's all.
It's also
Yeah.
a theme that
Thanks
we
for
talked
having me
about.
on.
Yeah, it's also a theme that, just to add on to what you said, like a theme that we had on about early on about the community. Well, you know, you can always disagree with somebody, just be constructive about it, you know. So it's been a pleasure having you, by the way, like on this podcast. Like I honestly, like, so those that don't know, this was like actually like the first time Sneb and I actually had a conversation one-on-one. And it really feels like I actually, like you said, it feels like we actually know each other just because we've hung out on different streams together, in our own streams. So I'd love to do this again, man. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. You guys can check out the links to his channels when this video goes on YouTube. So yeah, thank you guys so much. We're gonna host somebody else soon. If you want to say any last closing thing, Sneb, besides that, we are done.
That's it. Yeah, thanks again for having me. Geese in the chat, by the way.
Geese in the chat. That's like your community meme, is it? Like just how people talk about my giveaways are rigged. For you, it's the geese in the chat, huh?
Geese in the chat.
Geese in the chat, nice.
Yeah, there. Look, there's geese in the chat. Boom.
Oh, there you go. Nice. All right. Well, we're gonna raid somebody, guys. I'll probably not be live tomorrow because Monday is a day off for me. I'll probably have a guide up posted tomorrow, so watch out on YouTube. And then yeah, that's really it. Of course, I've got also the trailer if you guys want to check out the trailer for April's competition, the meme competition for the fashion contest. That's going to be the theme. Be something funny, come up with a meme, and show up to the fashion contest. Everything is on the YouTube channel, so make sure you follow the socials. And with that being said, that's it, guys. We're gonna go raid Mighty Teapot. Sneb, been a pleasure. Hope to see you in the near future. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thanks.
All right, take care, guys. Love you all, and I'll see you when I see you. Tuesday, don't forget, I stream on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and I'll be consistent this week, I promise you. But until then, we'll see you guys.